Hi, and welcome to Art with Mrs. Torres. Today we are going to be learning about the artist Vincent Van Gogh. The painting that we are going to be inspired by is called Olive Trees with Yellow Sun and Sky. Pretty simple name, but pretty amazing painting. This is done by Vincent Van Gogh in the year 1889. Not that you need to remember that, but I want to tell you that for today's lesson, we don't need a pencil, we don't need an eraser, and we don't need a Sharpie marker. We're going to be using different tools today. Simple things, you probably still have all of them around the house. The first thing you need is a piece of paper. Now, I'm going to talk to you about paper before I send you off to go on a scavenger hunt to find these things. This paper is the paper out of my printer, and I want you to see how it kind of wrinkles on the side. My painting is great. It turned out fabulous. I'm happy with it, but you can see the paper's kind of wrinkly. So if you don't have watercolor paper and you don't have construction paper, you can use regular paper out of the printer. So I just showed you what that looks like. This is my painting done on watercolor paper. So it's a little bit thicker. It's got a little bit more thickness to it, so it's going to grab those colors a little bit better. And this painting up here is done on construction paper. It worked out great too. So construction paper also is just a little bit thicker than the paper that comes out of your printer. So you're going to need, number one, a piece of paper. So whatever kind of paper you have around the house. Number two, you're going to need a paintbrush. Number three, you're going to need a napkin. That's for wiping your brush off. Or paper towel. Number, what are we on? Four, we're going to need something to put water in. I use just a plastic bowl. If you don't have a plastic bowl, how about a glass? If you don't have a glass, how about a cup? But something that's not going to tip over. I tend to be kind of klutzy when I paint, so I try to do things that are a little bit more shallow and not tall. Okay, so now once you have those tools, the other two items you're going to need are, number one, crayons, and then number two, you're thinking paint, right? We need markers. We're not going to use paint today. We're going to be using markers. And the markers I want you to look for in your house, in your school supplies, in your junk drawer, are markers like this, either Crayola or Rose Art or Walmart brand, Target brand, any kind of marker that's a water-based marker. What I don't want you to look for are Sharpie markers, because that's a permanent marker. We actually want these markers that are going to bleed the color when we get it wet later. So once again, let me repeat what we need before I send you off to go gather your supplies. A piece of paper, paper out of the printer, construction paper, watercolor paper, piece of paper. Number two, a paintbrush. Number three, a napkin. Number four, something to put your water in. Number five, crayons. And number six, markers. But remember, what kind of markers? Water-based markers, not Sharpie marker. Okay, so pause the video and then meet me back here. We're going to have so much fun doing this project today. You're going to like this one. It's going to be fun. Okay, see you in a minute. Gather your stuff. Welcome back. Okay, so you gathered up your items. Now, the things that we are working with today, just a reminder, are crayons. I put mine in a cup. Markers, I put those also in a cup. A paintbrush, a paper towel or a napkin, a bowl of water or a coffee mug full of water, that will also work, and a piece of paper for painting on and drawing on. Now, the paper I'm going to be using today is watercolor paper. However, if you only have copy paper, which is the paper that we normally do our art projects on, that is fine. My painting here was done just on copy paper. You'll notice it's a little wrinkly because this paper is a little thinner. However, if you have construction paper or watercolor paper, you're going to appreciate that when you get ready to start painting our project, because that paper is a little thicker. All right, now the artist that we are being inspired by is Vincent Van Gogh. This painting is called Olive Trees with Yellow Sky and Sun. This painting was painted in 1889, and this was painted while he was looking out the window while he was in a hospital. He wasn't feeling very well, and he went to the hospital to get some help. And while he was there, this was what he would see out of his window. He would see these beautiful olive trees out in this olive grove, and this hillside and these streams that are running through this hillside We also see some pretty mountains in the background and then a beautiful yellow sun and yellow sky. We're going to be trying to recreate this picture today, but to keep it a little more simple, we're just going to do one tree. We're not going to do two trees. We're just going to do one tree. And we're not going to do a bunch of bushes and everything in the background. We're going to keep it pretty simple. However, it's going to be beautiful. All right, so let's turn our paper horizontal, which is long. The only thing you need right now is crayons. We aren't even going to be using a pencil or an eraser or a Sharpie marker today. All right, get out a yellow crayon. Now my cup and my box has two different kinds of yellow. It doesn't matter which yellow you work with, but I've got two from my box to choose from. So I'm going to start with one of my yellow crayons to begin with. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is making a sun. Now he has this sun kind of in the center of the picture here. So I'm going to go right up here to the middle of my top of my paper here. And I'm going to draw a sun just like he did. So I'm just going to draw a circle. You're going to decide how big you want your circle. I made mine kind of about the size of a little bit bigger than a quarter. And then around that sun, I'm going to start making some little dash marks inside. Now what we're going to be copying is his style of painting. So when he painted, he would take his paintbrush and make these quick little dashes of paint. And so we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be using our crayon to do that. Next, I'm going to make a circle around the sun, making some dot-to-dot lines. I'm going to do it again, second circle, and again, a third circle. Now you can tell I'm just kind of making these quick little dot-to-dot lines all the way around. Circle doesn't have to be perfectly round, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to make some bigger ones a little bit farther out, and maybe one more row. Now when I'm finished, I'm going to put my yellow crayon back on my cup. I have a darker yellow, some kind of a golden yellow. Now if you don't have that, don't worry. You can go in and use some orange next. So I'm going to use my darker yellow. And after this, I'm going to use orange. So if you don't have a dark yellow, just go in and start doing the same exact thing again, this time adding a new color. And that new color is going to be orange or dark yellow. So far, I'm starting to build up my colors in my yellow sky the same way Vincent Van Gogh did. So I'm working kind of quick and simple and fast. I'm not worried about it being perfect. Okay, once I have that yellow done, now I'm going to go in and see what else I need to draw with my yellow crayon. So looking at this picture, I can see that there is a mountain range in the background here. So I'm going to draw some mountains. I'm going to take my yellow crayon and I'm just going to go over here and draw a mountain that goes up and down and up, kind of like a roller coaster. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to bring my line right underneath my sun and then come right back up again and off the edge of the paper. Now your mountains might look a little different than mine, and that is great. Whatever you come up with is going to be beautiful. And once I create that mountain, then I know how much space I'm going to use for my yellow sky. Now I can go in and add a few more dashes to finish off my sky up in the top area of my paper. Okay, my yellow is done here. Now I'm going to go down and create a horizon line. So the horizon line is this line that goes across the paper here. You can kind of see it just in this space right here where the ground separates from the sky. So from here on up, this would be the sky. From here down would be the ground. We're going to draw a horizon line using our yellow crayon. We're still using that same yellow crayon just to kind of draw a little bit more in our picture. So now I have, this section is the front of my picture. We call that the foreground. And this section back here is the background, foreground, background. Now the next thing we're going to add is some wavy lines to make a stream. So let me show you how I did that. I'm just going to make a little bit of a wavy line that kind of curves all the way off the edge of the paper, just below my horizon line. I'm going to start it over here on the corner. And if you notice, the stream is wider or larger here at the bottom of my paper, and it gets slowly thinner and thinner as it goes off the edge. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go a couple fingers up from the bottom. You don't have to measure, but just kind of a couple fingers up from the bottom over here and make a little dot where I want my stream to start. And I'm going to bring that line all the way over to the edge of my paper. So I'm just going to go like this and bring it all the way over to the edge of my paper underneath my horizon line right here. Now I'm going to go back from this corner and I'm going to make it really skinny over here, kind of like a skinny snake. And it's going to get a little bit farther apart and farther apart and farther apart until it comes down toward the bottom of my paper over here. So one way you could do that is just go over here and mark how wide you want your stream to be by making a little mark with your yellow crayon. And then you know that over here it has to get skinny. So I'm just going to trace this line. You can see it's pretty far apart here, and then it's going to get a little bit skinnier and skinnier and skinnier until it goes off the edge of the paper. So right now it could be a road, it could be a pathway, but we're going to turn that later into our stream. So now we have this section here and this section here. That's going to be the ground around our beautiful olive tree. So now to remind us where that ground is, I'm going to take my yellow crayon and I'm going to go like this, and I'm just going to scratch real fast. Do this really quick. Scratch some scratches into that ground. And we want to make this same color as this. We're going to do the same thing up above the stream. So we're not going to color the stream, and it's okay if you get a couple scratches in the stream, but we're going to try to focus on getting those scratches in the background part of the hill. All right, now we've got our ground, we have our stream, we have our mountains, we have our sky. The last thing we're going to do is our tree. Now we're going to wait and do our tree in just a minute. First, we're going to kind of focus on this part first. Let's put our yellow crayon away and let's move into the next color. We're going to do another warm color. We started with yellow. Now we're going to look for some kind of orange. So see what kind of oranges you have in your box. I have several different oranges in my box. I kind of have just a lighter orange that's like a yellow orange. I have a red orange, and then I have just a plain old orange. Now you might only have one shade of orange in your box, and that's okay. Whatever you have, that's what you're going to work with. So you're going to take your orange, whichever one you have, and if you have several, you can take them all out of your box. And the first thing we're going to do is trace around our sun. And then we're going to add a few dashes of yellow in our sun. And then we're going to take our orange and we're going to do exactly what we did with our yellow. So we're just going to follow exactly how we did our yellow before, making small dashes all the way around, kind of like we're forming a circle around the sun. Now there's another painting that Vincent Van Gogh did that's very similar to this style of painting, and it is called Starry Night. So if you've never seen Starry Night, you should look that painting up because it has the same type of pattern in the sky, and he does this pattern around all of the stars. All right, now we have some orange in our sky. I still have a couple other oranges to use, so I'm going to pop in a couple different shades of orange. Now this orange is a little bit darker. I'm going to use that one now. And then I'm going to add a little bit more orange in the corner, so it's a little bit darker away from the sun. Right around those mountains too. Now, the next thing we're going to do is take our orange and we're going to retrace this line. Do you remember what I called it? It's called a horizon line. So you're going to retrace that line. Now, this will help you remember that your paper is horizontal because this line is called the horizon line. So horizon, horizontal. So when we put our paper long, remember that horizon line that we drew. That's going to help you remember that word. Now we're going to retrace our stream. And then we're going to add some dashes of orange into our picture. And once we have all this drawn, then we're going to go in and start drawing our tree. So now, the only thing we haven't colored yet is our mountain and our stream, but those are going to be cool colors. Right now we're working with warm colors. So whenever you're finished, you're going to put your orange away. And the next color we're going to look for in our crayon box is brown. You can tell I love to work with brown because it's the color of chocolate, which happens to be my favorite thing in the whole wide world. So I never have very sharp brown in my coloring box. All right, so down here at the bottom, this is where we're going to start to form our tree. Now look at how fun Vincent Van Gogh's trees are. These trees are called olive trees, and they're not perfectly straight. Here's one that's kind of perfectly straight, but they're kind of wonky and bendy. I love the way these branches wiggle around, and even the bottom of the tree, the trunk of the tree, is really bumpy. I thought it would be kind of fun to make our tree kind of bendy too, kind of crooked. We're going to start down here, and the first thing we want to do is decide how fat you want your tree at the bottom. So you could make your finger width of your tree 1 finger wide or 2 fingers wide, maybe even 3. I wouldn't go any more than 3. That would be a pretty chubby tree. So I'm going to do mine about 2 fingers wide. So I'm going to just set my fingers down here. I'm going to make a little dot on one side. I'm going to make a little dot on the other. Now I know how fat I want my tree to be at the bottom. And then I'm going to start to draw 2 lines that come up just a little bit. We're not going to go very high because we're going to change it in just a minute. Now that would be a pretty boring tree, just a straight line going up. We want to make our tree kind of curvy and bendy. So I'm going to take this line and I'm going to bend it way over here, and it's going to go up, 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 up to the corner, toward the corner of my paper. So first I'm going to go this way. I'm going to bend it, and it's going to go right up this direction toward the corner of my paper. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to bend it this way first. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to bend it. And now I'm going to change direction, and I'm going to bring it over to the other corner, way up here. So I have these 2 lines that are going in totally different directions, but we're going to bring them together right here in the middle. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go right up here to the tip of my line, wherever you stopped it, and that's going to be the very end of the branch. And the branch is going to be super, super skinny right here, and then it's going to get chubby as it comes back to this section, just like how we did the stream. So from here, I'm going to go back, 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 and then it's going to be chubbier here and skinny there. And now I'm going to follow this line going this way. And remember, it's going to be chubbier here and then skinny as a tiny worm as it starts to go down. So I'm going to go closer and closer and closer until I get to a sharp little point at the end. Now I know you're thinking that does not look like a tree, Mrs. Torres. I know, we're going to fix it. Don't worry. Now let's add another branch right here. Now before you add a branch, remember that your branch always has to be skinnier than the branch it's growing off of, just like our fingers are skinnier than our hand. So think about that. As you're making a new branch, it can't be fat like this. It has to be a little bit skinnier than the old branch. And then if you make a baby branch coming off of here, those have to be even skinnier than that branch. So if I'm making little branches growing up like this, they have to be skinnier than the branch going off. Now let's make this branch split into 2 branches. So I'm going to go right here and split it off. And then I'm going to add another piece right next to it, super skinny. And then I can make some baby branches coming off. Just making a bunch of letter Y's. Y, Y. All right, if you would like to, you could even add a 3rd branch that's kind of wobbly. Now remember, if I'm making a 3rd branch, this branch, can't be wide and chubby like this. It has to be skinnier than this branch. So there I go. There's my little skinny branch. It's going to have some little wonky branches coming off. And when I'm finished, I'm going to take my crayon and I'm going to pull it down and make a few little windy stripes down the trunk and down the branch. Now don't color it in. Make sure you can still see the paper through this. Go ahead and put your brown crayon now up here at the top of the ground, and we're going to retrace that horizon line, but I want you to jump over the tree. We don't want to trace the line inside the tree. So I'm going to jump over, I'm going to come out the other side, and then I'm going to retrace my stream, because there would be dirt right next to the stream. That would be called the bank of the stream, or the bank of the river. So we're going to retrace this line where the soil is going to be, the dirt, and then I'm going to add a little bit of brown scratches into the ground. I want you to darken the line of your tree so it's a little bit darker. And right here at the bottom, you can kind of spread the lines out a little bit so they kind of are a little bit wider. See how I'm curving them? And darken that outline up a little bit. This is usually about the time when I try to press too hard, my crayon breaks. So try not to break your crayon, but if you do, it's okay. Don't throw it away, because broken crayons work just as good as crayons with the wrapper on them. All you have to do is peel the wrapper off if it breaks and save that crayon in a baggie, and you can use it later for another project when we're doing something where we have to color an area really quick. Okay, our brown part is done. Now we're going to take our brown crayon and put that back in the cup. And now that I've finished my tree with brown, we can go in and add some white. Now look in your crayon box and see if you have any white crayons. And if you do, get a white crayon out. If you don't, you could also use a peach crayon, like a light peach color, or a yellow crayon. So if you have a crayon that looks like a light peach, that will work. A yellow crayon will work, or white. Now I have white. I'm lucky that I have a white. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to press with a little bit more muscle. And I'm just going to scratch a couple lines of white into the trunk of the tree. Now let me show you what's going to happen later. Later, when we color the brown over it, that white is going to show through. I'm also going to take my white crayon and put a little bit of white scratches into the sun and a little bit of white scratches around the sun. So I'm pushing with a little bit of pressure. I'm actually leaving a little bit of wax on the paper as I do this. So what's going to happen is this crayon is going to resist the paint, meaning the paint's not going to be able to stick to it. While I have this white in my hand, I'm going to go in and put a few little dashes of white in the water. I know it doesn't show right now. Don't worry, it will later. Now the next thing we're going to do is put our white crayon away, and we're going to start to work on now our mountains and our streams. So our mountains are not going to be a warm color. We're going to do our mountains a cool color. So I want you to look at the colors that Vincent Van Gogh used in his mountains. He used blue and purple and a little bit of pink, even lavender. He also used those same colors in his stream. See how he used all those pretty colors? So we're going to go in and find those colors to color our mountains. So the first color I want you to look for, if you have it, is gray. Now, if you don't have gray, do you have blue? Get a blue crayon out. That will work great too. If you have it, look for a turquoise color, which is a bluish green color. Actually, on my wrapper, they call it blue green. If you don't have that, don't worry about it. Do you have any kind of purple in your crayon box? That's another great color. And pink would also be a beautiful color that you could use. Now, the first color I'm going to experiment with is gray. I have gray. Now, if you don't have gray to outline your mountains with, then go ahead and try blue. So I'm going to start with my gray crayon. And then I'm going to outline my stream with the gray. And then I'm going to put a few dashes of gray in my water. He added a little bit of gray in his water. Next, I'm going to come in here to the front of the mountain, and I'm going to add a little bit of gray on the front of the mountain. You see, I'm just kind of scratching it like this. So on this side of the mountain, the left side of the mountain, I'm going to put some gray dashes. Put your gray back in your box, and the next color I want you to look for is blue. So if you have blue, now if you used blue the last time, do you have another blue that's a different shade of blue? And we're going to retrace our mountain again. And this time, I'm going to make a shadow on the back side of the mountain. So look right here. You see how I made a little space right here where it's darker? And I made a little crack in the mountain right there. That's darker. And this back side of the mountain is dark. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to make a wibbly wobbly line like this. And I'm going to make a little crack in the mountain like that. And a wibbly wobbly line on this side of the mountain. Now we're going to take our blue and we're going to make some dash marks on this side of the mountain. This is going to be the shaded side of the mountain. I'm going to make a little crack because he has a little crack in his mountain right here too. Do you see that right there? See that little crack? So I'm going to add that too. Yours might look very different than mine. I bet yours is really beautiful. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm going to add some blue to my stream. I'm just scratching quick, 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 quick. And then my next color I'm going to use will be purple. But before I do that, let's put a tiny bit of blue on the front of the mountain. I want the front of the mountain to be a little bit lighter than the back of the mountain. Now I'm going to put some purple, because I have purple. If you have purple, add some purple to the shady side of your mountain. And add some purple into your water too. Don't forget that little part back here is your stream also. All right, now we are done with our crayons. I know you're thinking, but wait, Miss Torres, aren't we going to do the green part of the trees? Yes, but we're not going to do it right now. We're going to do it a little bit later. All right, let's get ready to start now with markers. So get your marker set out. And the color we're going to start with is the lightest color, which is yellow. Now we are going to be using some yellow because our painting has a yellow sun and a yellow sky. So we're going to take our yellow marker. We're not going to color. We're just going to go in and kind of use the side of our marker and make some quick dashes with yellow. I'm using the side of the marker. We did this with the Keep Caring project. Remember how we used the side of the marker to get bigger strokes? Kind of a wider line. And while you have this yellow in your hand, you could put a little bit in your tree. And you can put a little bit in the hillside next to your tree. Don't forget this part back here also. We're not going to put any yellow in the mountains or in the water, the stream. Go ahead and put your yellow marker back. Don't forget to snap that lid tight so that there's no space right here. You don't want to leave it like this, because they'll dry out and you won't be able to use them for the next project. Now look for orange if you have orange in your box. And we're going to add a little bit of orange. Now don't use too much orange because we really want our sky to look more yellow than orange. Just going to brush a couple little bits of orange in the sky. But I am going to add a little bit more orange to the ground. You notice how the ground has a lot more orange than the sky in his painting. So I'm going to add a little bit more orange to the ground. Still using the side. Later, this is going to do some cool things. It's not going to look like this when we're done, I promise. I'm going to add a little orange with my side of my marker to my tree. Don't forget those branches. If I have a skinny branch, I can hold my marker straight up and down like this, and I can use the skinny point. If I have a big fat area like this, I can use the side of the marker. When I'm done, I'm going to put my orange back, snap that lid tight, and then the next color we're going to look for is brown. So we're going to take our brown and we're going to add just a hint of brown to our ground around our water. We're not going to put any brown in the sky. And we're going to put a little heavier coat on our tree later. Let's wait for now. So go ahead and snap your lid back on your marker. We're going to come back to it in a little while. Let's get ready to wake up our markers with our water and our paintbrush. Now, if you are left-handed, you're going to be putting your water on the left-hand side of your paper. You're going to be putting your paintbrush and your napkin right underneath your water set like this. If you are right-handed, which is most of you, you're going to put your water on this side of the paper. You're going to put your napkin over here and your paintbrush next to it, like that. I'm a lefty, so I'm going back over to this side. Now, the first thing we're going to be doing is painting our paper, and it's going to get a little wet. So I'm going to remove my green background construction paper here. And my paper underneath this is just a piece of construction paper. If you don't have a piece of big construction paper like that to place underneath, you could also use paper towels. So usually I just grab a few paper towels and I lay them out. I don't break them apart. I tend to put just a big long section of paper towels underneath here. And that way it can catch any of my drips that come off the edge of my paper. So now I'm going to take my water. I'm going to set it right here. You can see my water's right above my napkin. And I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to very carefully, now when I'm using my paintbrush, let me move my camera for just a minute. When I'm using my paintbrush in the water, I don't tap my brush on the edge of the bowl or the edge of the cup because that's going to cause a water spill. What I do is I just wipe it up the side like this to get the drips off. All right, let me put my camera back straight so you can see. Let's get ready to paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wake up the lightest area, which is my sun right up here. So I'm going to put a couple drops of water right here. I'm just scooping up some water with my brush. I'm laying it on the middle of my paper, and then I'm just going to quickly wiggle waggle my brush and wake up that yellow sky. Now you'll notice as my paintbrush grabs that tiny bit of orange, it changes the yellow marker and it turns a pretty golden yellow. Do you see that? You'll also notice that wherever my white crayon was in my sky, it leaves a white mark and the water doesn't stay there, it pushes away. And that word is called resisting. So it's resisting because the wax resists the water. The wax is stronger than the water. The wax from the crayon is stronger than the water, so it pushes it away. And when I'm finished painting my sky, we want that sky to dry pretty quickly. So now what I'm going to do is take my brush and push that extra paint and water off of my paper onto my background paper. See what I'm doing? Just scooping, brushing it all off of the edge of my paper so that there are no puddles left in my sky. We want that to start drying right away. So I'm going to look real close, make sure I have no puddles, and now I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom of my paper. So I'm going to come over here to the bottom of my paper with my water, and I'm going to paint the ground around my tree. So because I added a little bit of brown into the ground with that yellow and orange marker, you'll notice the ground is going to be a little bit darker than the sky. I also have a little space right here to the right of my tree. I'm going to scoop those puddles right off the bottom of my paper. See what I'm doing? I'm brushing them off. Scoop this water right off the edge. Your paper might start curling up if you are working with copy paper and not watercolor paper. It might be scooping, it might start to curl up a little bit. So just push your finger down on it to flatten it out. Now that's not the only ground. We also have the ground behind the stream here in the distance. So that part I'm going to be a little bit more careful to color that. And I'm going to just add that water and pull that wet paint off the edge of my paper, trying not to leave any puddles. Almost done. There we go. And now I'm going to clean my brush lay it down on my napkin, let it sit there for just a second, and I'm going to come back into my tree now. And I want to make sure that I use a little bit darker brown. So I'm going to take my brown marker and I'm going to make sure I get some good coats of brown on my tree. So I want it to be a little bit darker than the ground next to it. So I'm going to use the side of my marker, add some brown in there. And then as I get to that part where the branches are skinny, I'm going to have to tilt my marker straight up and down and use the tip just to add a little bit of marker ink up on those branches. All right. Now I'm going to close up my marker, put it back in my cup, and I'm going to wake up my tree now. So you'll notice, especially now that we're working with a darker color like the brown, that wherever you put that white oil pastel or peach oil pastel or yellow, I'm calling it oil pastel, oh my goodness, crayon. Wherever you put your white crayon or yellow crayon or peach crayon, that the brown paint doesn't stick on it very well. Do you see that? Just kind of rolls up into a little ball. Go ahead and push all that extra paint off the bottom of your paper. So there's no big puddles. Rinse out your brush. I'm just getting those last little puddles right up there. Clean out your brush. Clean it really well because our next color, we don't want to have any brown on our brush. I always test my brush on my napkin to make sure it's clean before I set it down. All right, well, let's move on now to doing some cool colors. So our cool colors in our picture are going to be some blue, and we're going to use some green in the trees, blues and greens in the trees, and blue in the water. So grab your blue marker first, any kind of blue that you have. You might have two shades of blue. I only have one. I only have this regular blue, but some crayon boxes have two shades of blue. I'm going to add a little blue into my water. Don't forget this little piece right here in the back. Then I'm going to add a little blue to the front of the mountain. And I'm going to add a little blue to the back of the mountain. And I'm going to close up my marker. And then the next color I'm going to look for is, I have a little blue-green color, like a turquoise. If you don't, you could also use just regular green and put a couple dots of this turquoise color. If you don't have turquoise, like I said, just put a little bit of green in your water. Purple would be beautiful too. And then we're going to wake up our colors using our paintbrush for our water. And then I'm going to grab that water and I'm going to use it up here to paint my mountains. When you're all finished painting your mountains, we're going to scoop up that water and push it off the edge of our paper so there are no puddles. We want it to be a little bit lighter on the front side of our mountain. So what I'm going to do is grab that paint. I'm going to take my napkin and I'm going to scoop that paint up with my brush, and then I'm just going to wipe it on the napkin. So you notice I'm making it a little bit lighter. I can add a little bit of water to lighten my color too. I just scooped a little bit of water up on my brush. Now the back of my mountain is going to be a little bit darker than the front of my mountain. I'm just wiping that paint right onto my napkin. All my mountains are done. And then our final part of our picture, I have a little space right there. Do you see that space? That's actually supposed to be part of the sky. Put a little bit of yellow right there and quickly clean my brush and add that yellow in there. There you go. Okay, so now let's do the green part of our tree. So look up here, the foliage of our olive trees. Look what he did. He just swirled with his paintbrush. He literally just made little circles round and round and round and round. So we're going to scribble. We're literally going to scribble with a green marker. So get your green marker and we're going to scribble circles. So we're just going to take the marker on its side and make scribbles like this. We're going to do it on the other branch too. It's going to look like a green cloud at first. Do it right up to the edge of the paper. Now that's just the first color. Go ahead and put your green back. Snap that lid tight. Now grab blue. I want you to take your blue and I want you to do blue at the bottom. Just at the bottom. This is going to be more like a shadow. When you're finished, if one side of your mountain isn't dark enough, you can add a little bit more blue while you have your marker in your hand to darken up that shadow. When you're finished, we're going to take our paintbrush. We're going to, if you did do your mountain, you can go ahead and paint your mountain now to darken that side of the mountain. We're going to scoop that color off the edge of the paper so we don't leave any puddles. And then you're going to wake up your tree. So I'm just going to take a wet brush, put a couple drops of water on my paper, and swirl that color around to wake up those beautiful colors in our tree. Now you're going to notice something. Because our sky is dry, our paint leaves a hard line. You see how it leaves like a stiff line? It doesn't all bleed together. So that's why we let our sky dry so that we were able to paint our tree later. If we would have painted our tree while our sky was still wet, the green would have leaked into the sun and it would have started spreading across our whole paper. So we let our sky dry a little bit and then we were able to paint our tree. So I hope you had fun today painting our Vincent Van Gogh olive tree painting. I just think it turned out so beautiful. If you would like, I would love you to send me a photograph of your painting. You can send me a picture by emailing me at rtorres@lcusd.net. I would love to see your work and what you've been doing. Hope you had fun. I'll see you next time.